Before we get going into your Hockey IQ podcast episode, I want to thank our sponsor, Rapid Shot. Rapid Shot is the smart shooting lane. It's like a batting cage for hockey players. Very cool. Tracks your shot in three ways: accuracy, shot speed, and reaction time. Easy to use. Actually, I used it when I played and was growing up. Very easy. Simply scan your phone in, select your settings, and start shooting. You can see your stats on the app and online. You can check them out at rapidshot.com. Great small business. I actually grew up with one of the owner's sons and have played with all the family members by now, just in local pickups here in Ohio. Very cool local business. Awesome product. I love it. I know quite a few NHLers have them in their homes. A lot of D1 programs have it at their rinks. So you have to check this out. Rapidshot.com. Check it out. Rapid Shot, thank you so much for sponsoring our podcast.
On today's podcast, we have Jim Midgley. Jim is a quite the man. He's well-traveled. He's now currently over in Germany, but before that, he spent quite some time with the Halifax Mooseheads, coaching talents such as Nathan MacKinnon, Jonathan Druoin, Nico Hischier, Nick Ehlers, and Timo Meier. So, wow, really good episode here. Dan, what did you take away from this one?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Jim's obviously a well-traveled guy, but like you said, he spent a lot of time in the Maritimes. It was just interesting to hear him talk about, this is a guy who's coached everything from prep hockey, major junior, CIS, and now pro in the DEL. So he's got a lot of perspectives on a lot of different, types of players and even cultures. So really interesting guy to talk to.
Yeah, you could tell he has some details in his mind, and I love the idea that he's talking about the details of the game rather than the systems of the game. Obviously, everyone needs a system to stay on the same page, but when he goes out there and coaches players, habits are the things that he's focusing on, and that's the stuff that transfers. So that was great to hear and great to see, and I think that's the one thing I want everyone to take away is making sure that we're teaching good quality habits at the youngest ages.
Yes, well said. And like he suggested, I'm going to certainly steal from him, and I would encourage our audiences to follow, because if you're not getting better, you're getting worse.
Absolutely. Well, without further ado, let's have a great conversation with Jim. Here we go. Welcome, Jim. Excited to have you. How you doing?
Oh, great. Thanks for having me.
So I think you've got a very interesting story out of Halifax, Nova Scotia, hanging with the Mooseheads, and now over in Germany. So maybe give our listeners a little bit of background on you and your journey through the hockey world.
Yeah, no, I'm originally from Ontario after a 3-year OHL career, and I was recruited to come out here to Halifax to play at St. Mary's University from Trevor Steinberg. So I had a 4-year CIS career here in Halifax. Loved it. Fell in love with the city. And I haven't really left. So like I said, 4-year career playing here at St. Mary's, and then I had a 1-year pro cup of coffee down in Fort Worth, Texas. Played in the Central League. Ended up breaking my ankle blocking a shot, and I always knew I wanted to coach. So Darren Burns, who is the assistant coach here at St. Mary's, ended up going back to where he played at Acadia University, and he was looking for a full-time assistant coach, and I was lucky enough to get a full-time job with him. Didn't make a whole lot of money doing it, but I had the passion to coach, and I wanted to coach. So I did 4 years with Burnsy down at Acadia, which was awesome and great. It was really great for my starting of my coaching career. He gave me a big role and gave me a lot of leeway to learn how to coach and learn the business side of hockey. Ordering equipment to running hockey schools for our student athletes, which is a big part of being an assistant coach for a CIS program. So I was real fortunate enough to land that position, and it was real comfortable for me. Burnsy had coached me, and he knew what type of passion I had for the game. So it was a great learning experience for me for my first part of my coaching career, for sure. And then I ended up going to St. John Sea Dogs for 2 years, and that's a real funny story too. And I think anybody in the hockey world will say it's all who you know. and I ended up going to do some recruiting for Acadia to St. John, and my old roommate was an assistant coach there with St. John, just a part-time guy, Mike Dawson, who's actually now a scout for the Carolina Hurricanes. So ended up going to see them after a game. I was up recruiting, went into the coach's office, had a few beers, whiteboard out with their coaches, started talking hockey. And at the end of that season, Jacques Beaulieu, who was with the Sarnia, ended up he was assistant coach with the London Knights when they won the Memorial Cup, ended up going to Sarnia. So anyways, long story short, he was looking for an assistant coach the following year. So ended up interviewing, talking to him, did 2 years with the St. John Sea Dogs. And then I ended up going to a prep school. St. Jacques ended up getting fired. I had 1 year left of my contract. I had to make a decision on what I wanted to do with my coaching career. And St. John really didn't let me know if I was going to be, part of their future, and they were going to wait till the new coaches came in. It ended up being Gerard Gallant and Mike Kelly, who I'm still friends with now and stay in contact with. So I ended up doing 2 years at RNS Prep School, which was great. A whole new level of running a program by myself and getting that up off of the ground. And Jeff Lewis is a good friend of mine who's there right now and has sort of just kept building on what I started there. So 2 years with St. John, or 2 years with St. John, 2 years with RNS. And again, how small the hockey world is. Cam Russell, who is now the GM of the Halifax Mooseheads, came out to skate with us at St. Mary's when I was playing at St. Mary's, and I was asking him tons of hockey questions because I'm a hockey geek or a hockey freak and love talking hockey. And he was the GM, and they were looking for an experienced assistant coach, and it ended up getting me back to Halifax and ended up coaching there for 8 years, 7 as assistant and one as a head coach. So that's sort of, I know I babbled on there, but that's sort of how my coaching career sort of started and where it came from and how I got to the Maritimes. And, I'm 42 now, and I think I've spent more, obviously I've spent more time in the Maritimes than I have back home in Ontario. So I love it. My wife's from Ontario, and she's working here too. So it's great for us.
That is awesome, and a really interesting, journey path.
Yeah.
Curious if you could tell us just a little bit about, pros and cons. You've obviously coached CIS, you've coached major junior, prep school. Like what do you see as maybe differentiators for not just players, but like things that you like maybe or dislike about different, levels, ages, et cetera?
Yeah, well, now I'm coaching the DL in Germany, and it's obviously from these guys have all played whether it's junior hockey, major junior hockey, played in the American League. Some guys have played in the NHL. These guys have all been through the I guess the trenches and different things of junior hockey and university. One thing I will say, a good thing about pro is there's no babysitting. The guys are pros. They look after themselves. That it's a job for them. They come and do their off ice workout. They stretch. They look after themselves. They practice 45 minutes to an hour and 15, and then then they're looking after their bodies. They're going home. So that was one thing I really enjoyed after my first year coaching and pro hockey is there was no curfews, there's no school stuff that you had to deal with, which is different compared to a major junior that I was part of, with those 9-10 years of major junior hockey. And then obviously with the CIS too, there's so many different things when you're part of university hockey, whether it's recruiting, whether it's fundraising, running golf tournaments, running hockey schools, that you're almost more busier in the off season than you are during the season, because during the hockey season, you get yourself into a routine, what time you're practicing, when your games are, when you can do your prep video, when you can, prepare your practices. And the off season's just, it's crazy for CIS coaches. It's just always something's on the go, whether you're meeting with the sponsor, you're trying trying to, recruit new players for, next year and the year after. So there's lots of things that are different at each level. The prep school level, I was recruiting, minor hockey players. So that was a whole different thing too. And the prep school is, it's a business, and, parents are, how much money can you give us? And there's so many different things at different levels that are different and unique. And, I was fortunate enough to work at all those levels. So I learned a lot of different things in terms of the hockey and the coaching and the structure and the business side of it as well.
That's really cool. And you've had to have access with some of the you have had access with some of the greatest talents with MacKinnon and Druoin and Hischier, and I want to kind of hear maybe what it's like to coach them. But first, maybe what are some elements that you're looking for when you go out recruiting, and the type of kids that have succeeded once they did arrive in your program and you're able to help coach them up?
Yeah, in major junior, it's a lot of it is the GM and the scouting staff has a lot to has a lot more to do with it than the coaching staff does. One thing that I will say here in Halifax is there's a really good major midget league here. So I live in Cole Harbor, and the rink is a block away from me too. So I was able to go watch a lot of midget hockey with our scouts, with our GM Cam Russell, and I would say the number one thing is in terms of what we're looking for is just good people first, and I think that's really important. One thing Halifax has done a good job of is, we haven't had many major issues. Like, we've always made sure, we've done our homework on the player, on the background of the player, and, where he's come from. And I think we've done I think Halifax does a good job of that. I think hockey sense is a big thing. You have to be able to skate in terms of the hockey side of it. We've been real fortunate here to have great Europeans, and obviously, you said it already with MacKinnon and Druoin, Fucale and net, and Mackenzie Uyghurs in Florida. We've done a good. They've done a good job of bringing in high end talent, and that's hats off to the ownership with Bobby Smith and the general manager with Cam Russell, and obviously the scouting staff with Ali McDonald looks after it here in the Maritimes. So I think those are three things that I would say is good people first, hockey sense. Skating ability is another big thing too. Is we all know how fast hockey is now.
That MacKinnon, Druoin, Fucale, Mem Cup team was one of my favorite, must-watch teams to watch, at any level. I just still remember just finding, live streams as best I could just to find those games on TV or whatever, because those teams were just dynamic.
Yeah.
I'm curious, how your practices have changed going from, major junior to pro, or maybe even prep to back to major junior, what, how different they look, how similar they might look.
Yeah, I think it's there's different levels of development side of it. Obviously, like I said, in the prep school where I was at, recruiting kids out of Bantam for midget age, for prep school under 18 level. So there was a lot more teaching, a lot more details, a lot more stop and go teaching on the video side of it. So I think there was a lot more development in terms of, you're trying to build players' habits. You're trying to build players, like I said, tendencies and different things like that at the prep school level. And I think you're still doing it in junior as well. You could always tell players in their first year, 16, 17-year-old major junior players who had good coaching. And I think that's, that is real important at our youth minor hockey is making sure kids get good development. I'm still on the ice with kids here, 2008, 2009 players, if you can believe it. And I think it's very important to teach the details and the habits of the game. I think that's so important rather than the breakouts and the skills. I think it's the skills part of it is very important too. If you can't angle, you can't forecheck. If you can't pass, you can't break out. There's so many little details in the game that I think that sometimes get get missed at our youth hockey level is those basics, the details, the habits, the skills have to be taught. So I think it's different at every level. You know, like I said, the pro level is I think you're still working on those habits, but it comes real fast for those guys. And it's, you know, that's the fun thing about coaching at the pro level. I think you tell them once and you don't have to tell them again too. So, you know, at the junior level and the prep level, there's still a lot more, there's a lot of teaching for sure.
I'm a big fan of teaching and using video and different things like that. Are there some specific items that you look at and, okay, we're got to start on this and we have to have this, or what's kind of maybe your style when you go about coaching? What are you making sure that you're, you know, if a guy watches your team for the first time, they're going to notice X, Y, and Z?
Yeah, I think there's two different parts of use of video for coaches. I think it's important that you use video as a teaching tool, whether it's individual, whether it's you know, I'm a big believer of doing a team teaching video part of your weekly schedule, whether that's on a Wednesday or a Tuesday is you know, and that is the angling part, you know, the little habit part of stick on puck and different things like that. And I think there's the second part of using your video as a coach in terms of, you know, your pre-scouts and your you know, your explaining how you want things done. So I think there's two different parts of video. I think sometimes coaches get mixed up on putting it all together. But I think for me, the success I've had with, you know, Dominic Ducharme, who's assistant coach of the Montreal Canadiens, and Andre Tournier, who coached with Colorado and Ottawa, who's, you know, he was the CHL coach of the year with the 67s. I think one thing that I've learned from them is you have to use video for teaching, and you also have to use video for your pre-scouts and, you know, for your PKs and for your power plays and different things like that. So I think it's very important to make sure any young coach or any coach is doing that. I think that's important for me as a coach.
Yeah, that's good advice. I want to go back to something you said that I thought was really interesting about the, you know, some coaches, they'll harp on maybe a breakout or, you know, at the youth level when, you know, they don't even have the skill set or at least like the instincts to make it so that, you know, they're in a position that they can like do the skills that you're asking them to do inside of the larger systems, right? So I guess like from a practice to game transfer, like do you track any sort of like metrics for games, or like how, maybe not you specifically, but like your teams, like how have you gone about like using analytics maybe from like 10 years ago to today, or like what's changed?
Yeah, I think it's changed a lot. I think it's, you know, it's something that you know, it's getting back to the video too. I think video has changed so much as well, and I think now coaches are, you know, I'll just use entries. I think it's very, you know, it's something I think a lot of coaches now are looking, how did you get in or how did you get out, whether it's a zone exit or a zone entry. I think it's evolved, and I think it's really important for any coach. I don't think it's something you know, at the younger youth levels, you know, coaches should be focusing on. But I know at the pro level now with analytics, it's a big part of it. And I think it's come a long way. And there's so many different tools now that you can use, whether it's, you know, you're using Instat or whatever. So I think it's come a long way. And, you know, puck possession time, I think that's you know, that's another thing that we looked at a lot over in Germany. But entries and exits were a big thing on how we were getting out. And obviously it's you know, the more entries you have, the less you're trying to get it out of your own end too. So it's come a long way for sure. No question.
That's wonderful. I'm curious on how you push truly great players. I mean, MacKinnon, Druoin, Hischier were all top 3 picks. How do you push players like that? I'm assuming that obviously you're going to have some self-drive, but as a coach, it's got to be an unbelievably difficult job in being able to coach those guys compared to other ones you've had a bunch of players like that. You know how this goes, and pull from that, but those guys seem to be on a different level, and what that's like, and how do you get to them and help them?
Yeah, I've been lucky to, obviously MacKinnon and Hischier, 2 first overall guys, and they were sort of different players, but they were driven the same. MacKinnon, we just saw what he did in the playoffs. He was so competitive, and I think that's, and so is Nico, don't get me wrong, but Nathan was a bull with skill. He could run guys over, he could play any way you wanted to play, but his competitiveness was so high. It was, beyond elite. And that was the cool thing about him is, whether it was a one-on-one drill, whether it was a small area game in practice, whether it was just a race down the ice, he wanted to be the first at everything. And that's what made him so special. And, Dan, you mentioned about the Memorial Cup team, like his final game was incredible. And that's all, I'll never forget how he just said, we're going to win. And he did it anyway, anyhow he wanted to. And, that's what made him so special. The thing about Nico is what made him real cool is he was so worried about his defensive game more than his offensive game. That's what made him like such an unbelievable player. He wanted to work on his D zone just as hard as he wanted to work on the offensive side of the puck. And he was real special, and probably the most complete player I've ever coached in terms of 200 foot. He was, he wanted to work on face-offs. He wanted to work on chipping pucks out. He wanted to work on his down low one-on-one stuff. And you don't see that in a lot of, major junior hockey players. And that's what made him so special. His little things he wanted to work on. Druoin he had vision like I've never seen a hockey player have. Like his hockey IQ, his hockey sense was through the roof. And, he was really, really good at that. Like he was like, I can't explain how he saw things. Like, you'd be behind the bench going, how the heck did he make that pass? Or how did he see that? And that's what made him elite. Like it was really good. And Nikolai Ehlers, his skating ability, cutting, his east-west play was just as good as his north-south. So he was real special too.
Yeah. One thing that's super interesting is that they're all completely different players, like you said, and that makes it kind of challenging, like Greg alluded to too, because like Greg said, you can't really draw on the same experiences. They're all they have different strengths, different attributes. Our platform obviously keys a lot on hockey sense, hockey IQ. So I guess for sake of this question, let's just use Druoin as the example. But you mentioned that like he had this ridiculous hockey sense. How do you think that he was so advanced at it, and how do you think that like you and your staff helped develop it even more?
How we helped develop it more was is Nate and Joe were a little bit different because Nate played his 16, 17-year-old year, then he went to the NHL. We got Druoin back after he was drafted by Tampa 3rd overall. So one thing we challenged Druoin when he came back is we put him at center. And I know he's a left winger now, and I know Montreal tried him at center. So we challenged Druoin to be a centerman for us. We were a little thin at center, and we wanted to make him a better hockey player. And that was one thing that we decided to do is playing center compared to left wing was a lot different. You had to learn how to play down low. You had to learn how to take face-offs. You had to learn the game in a different way. So we challenged Druoin to play center that year, and it was a little bit of an experiment. It was something that we had to be patient with and take time, and Joe had to buy into it for us. And he ended up playing with Ehlers that year too, so that really helped out too, right? He had a world class winger with him, so we lucked out that way with Joe. We challenged him to play a different position, and I think it made him a better hockey player. And like I said, it took time. It took time to do. And one thing I will say about all those elite players, just getting back to that question you asked, the question before was those guys. Anytime we did skill work, anytime we did, we did Monday skills or first 15 minutes of practice of skills, those guys loved it. The Timo Meiers, the Ehlers, Druoin, Hischier, those guys those guys were driven to do that. They loved doing it, and that's what was really cool about those guys. They wanted to get better. They loved that skill work. They loved doing those little things after practice. I remember having to kick those guys off the ice, like, because 2 hours was long enough, 4 or 5 times a week, and have to play 3 games on the weekend. So those guys were easy guys to coach in terms of that. But it was also fun for us as a coaching staff to be creative with those world-class players as well.
That is awesome. I love the fact that you put them in a different position. It's something I do with all of my players, and it's universal on how much it improves players. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It absolutely makes them better, and you're damn correct that it takes some time and some frustrations and coaching them along to, hey, stick with the program. You're getting better. You're doing the right things, and it's only a matter of time. I'm wondering how it was off the ice. Did these kids get it right away? Are they ones that kind of needed a little bit of time? And Timo Meier is one of my favorite players. He seems like a guy who would just do anything and everything for his teammates. But I'm curious to see maybe the personalities and how those affected their skill set on the ice.
Yeah, you know what? We didn't have any issues with any of those elite guys off the ice. One thing I will say about those high-end European guys, they come over here. They come to Halifax. Obviously, the track record we had with guys, the Marty Ferks and Conrad Abelscheiser right now plays in the DEL where I am. Those guys come to Halifax or any team in the CHL to play in the NHL. They're so focused on, NHL is their dream. Obviously, some don't make it, but we were lucky enough here in Halifax when I was here is to have guys go on to play in the NHL, and they're world-class players and high-end CHL, European draft picks. So those guys are driven to play, to get to that next level. And that's what's so fun to coach them. I will say, one thing that we always got worried about in that 2013 year was Druoin MacKinnon getting hurt, because we would honestly get up 4 or 5-0 on teams, and there'd be half a game left, and we all know how some guys are, jealousy or wherever it is we would put those guys on the power play, and then we decide not to put them on the power play. But those guys want to play the power play because they're, it's a development for them, a development for us. It's their draft years. So those are all things that we had to play into account too. And, some teams, some coaches got mad at us because it'd be 7-0 halfway or 6-0 halfway through the second period, and we were still putting our number one power play on the line. So we had to find the balance as a coaching staff to say, when do we shut them down? When don't we, or when do we put our second unit on? Because we got to look at the player as well too, because it's like I said, it's their draft year, it's their careers as well. So that was the balance that we had with those guys in terms of the hockey side of it. But off ice, we really didn't have, I can't say we had any issues. One of the big things with that MacKinnon and Druoin years, going up to the Quebec side of things, the collectors, the fans who wanted autographs, like we had to sort of control that. Like after games, before games, they all seemed to know when we would come to town, and they would have hundreds and hundreds of things for those guys to sign. So we had to control that part of it. And, we had to control the media, and different people wanted to interview them all the time. And, our sponsors wanted to do things with them. So we had to control that just to protect them and their rest and their time as well. They had to be kids too, and they were still going to school as well.
And you somehow let Nathan MacKinnon go on Mr. D, everyone's favorite Canadian show. How did that happen?
Yeah, you know what? Jerry D's a huge hockey guy. I think he played down at St. FX, which is like 2 hours from here, university. And yeah, he's a hockey guy, hockey fan. And Nathan and Cam Critchlow, who was our captain Nate's first year, who was really good for us in terms of leadership for those young guys that first year when Nate's 16-year-old year. So him and Critch ended up getting on the show, and now Jerry D tweets about them all the time and different things like that. So yeah, it's funny. It's there's a lot. That's a cool show for sure. Yeah.
That's hilarious. without being too obvious here, like what are the differences between coaching in Canada and then Germany?
Well, the big thing for me, it was obviously everything was new for me as a coach in terms of first time I've coached pro, the German language, but the tongue of the NHL is English. So we coached all in English. Our head coach, Jason O'Leary, speaks English and he speaks German. So that really helped me as well. Obviously, like I said earlier, in terms of the coaching, it was pretty cool to, tell the guys one thing and then they could do it instantly. That was a big difference in terms of going over there. Like I said, everything was new. So the fans are absolutely crazy. They're soccer fans, think they're hockey fans, but it's pretty, I think you guys have watched the Spangler Cup and, the World Championships, and it's all for real. Like the fans are crazy, the flags, the chants, the dances, it's amazing how every rink over there has a standing room section, and it's a huge section. So it's pretty cool. It's that was a big difference. And as you guys know, the bigger ice, there's more time, there's more space. One thing I will say about the DEL, you're allowed 10 imports in the league, so it's a heavy league. They're still fighting. It's still physical. There's with the imports that come over, and the German players play hard. And German hockey's come a long way. You look at the National Hockey League draft coming up this year with Stützle, Peterka, and Reichel, and then Leon Draisaitl on Monday night wins the Hart Trophy and the Ted Lindsay. So German hockey's coming a long way. The youth hockey, the youth coaches are doing a fantastic job. I was able to watch some youth practices in Iserlohn. But the skills they're working on, and there's a lot of kids playing. There's a lot of kids over there who are playing hockey. There's, obviously it's a soccer country, but hockey's come a long way in Germany. They're doing a great job.
That's awesome. We've got a few alumni. I'm in the Columbus area, and there's 2 DEL alumni off the top of my head, Jean-Luc Grandpierre and Dave Steckel, that both play, or at least played. And they both have great things to say about the DEL. I've talked more with Jean-Luc about it, but it seems like a great place to play. And I'm curious if you think that like more, has traditionally, I guess, more players after their NHL careers will head to, Switzerland or the KHL or whatever. Do you think that the DEL is going to continue? You said the 10 imports, obviously, but is there any reason to think that the DEL won't continue to see, NHL alumni like in the same numbers?
Yeah. I certainly, I certainly would say that the KHL in Switzerland, I would say Sweden, they seem to be getting a lot of NHL guys right now with COVID-19, and a lot of guys are being loaned over there. In saying that, the same thing's happening in Germany as well. And I think the players enjoy going over to Europe. It's with the DL, it's a 52 game schedule, and it's more of a weekend schedule with a Friday Sunday game schedule. So it's easier on the body. The guys like to go over. You can do a little bit of travel, and traveling's cheap. And I think guys enjoy going over there, and it's still really, really good hockey. I was very impressed with the hockey. They're very impressed with the caliber. And it's like you said, with the imports, there's a lot of guys going over, and it's, I didn't realize until I was over in Europe how many hockey players are out there in the world, and it's crazy. And part of recruiting teams or players for Iserlohn this year, and the agents are trying to sell their players obviously to come over. So it's very interesting for sure.
That's awesome. The German League is really cool. One of my good friends, he actually when he played junior for the Ohio Junior Blue Jackets, when they had a USHL team, Denny Urban ended up playing with the Straubing Tigers. DEL after career at Robert Morris. Did some amazing things in ECHL and dabbled in the AHL. And yeah, he said the same thing. Great place to play, really cool with all the fans, and absolutely is a great league. I'm curious though on the youth side and how they're developing their players, maybe what you're seeing on that side of it, and how they're stealing from all the other parts of the world, or some things that they're being innovative on.
Yeah, one thing I was really impressed with is I know in Iserlohn where I am is we have a skills coach who works with our team, and he's the skills coach right through the entire youth program, the entire club. And I was really impressed with, there would be 30 some odd kids on the ice and how they had them spread out and how they had them moving. I thought the coaching staffs over there did a great job of teaching the basics, teaching things that we're teaching, here in North America. And, I would say the coaching has come a long way from what I understand from talking to people, how well German hockey is developing, and how the coaches are doing a great job with the development side of it.
From a hockey IQ teaching standpoint or hockey sense teaching standpoint, is there an example of anything that you can think of something that you used to teach or used to coach that you no longer do, or something that you do more of now than you ever would have imagined?
Yeah, I will say this is when I first got into coaching, I mentioned Darren Burns before, and talking to other coaches who I've had the chance to work with, is if you're not willing to learn, and if you're not willing to be open-ended in terms of what you want to learn, what you want to you're always learning something in coaching. And I'm in a couple different coaches groups, and we meet on Monday nights, and I learn something every Monday night, whether it's a new drill, whether it's a new system, whether it's a new way to angle, a new way to a new face off, a new system, like I said. So I think for me as a coach, I've always been one of the, and I want to learn. I want to, I beg, borrow, and steal, and I think that's what coaching is. I think one thing you have to be as a coach is you have to be willing to learn and be open-minded, and willing to listen and learn from other coaches. And that's one thing that I think I've done this the last 5-6 months as a coach. I think my in terms of my own education, in terms of with the COVID, I'm willing to sit down and watch games, join different groups, different webinars, different Zooms, and I think a lot of guys are doing that as well. So I think there's lots of resources for you to find and to learn from other people. So I think that's something that I've tried to do as a coach.
That's cool. I've done that as well on my end. I know it's been tough, even on the social aspect. Some guys are extremely social and they can't handle it. They need to talk to someone. So even mental health has been big on that as well.
Agree 100%. Yes.
Yeah. So I've got a few things that I'm excited to go and implement now that the rinks are open again. Is there something that you've learned recently, or something that you're really excited about, or something you want to get into the rink and work out?
No state secrets.
No, I think we've in Atlantic Canada, where I am, the Atlantic bubbles are calling it, is we've been lucky here to have our rinks open for a while. And we started with groups of 5, then we went up to 10. And one thing I really enjoyed working with the groups of 10 was the 10 players, 1 coach, was a lot of the one-on-one stuff and a lot of the skill development stuff. It wasn't a lot of team oriented drills. It was a lot of individual skills and some stuff out of the corner in that that bubble of 10. That's what I really enjoyed during this COVID time, with us being able to come back on the ice. I think we're allowed 18 on the ice here now, so it's been fun. It's been interesting to just work with those small groups, and the small groups of 10. It's been fun to work on the basics, the skills, the little details, and you can watch 10 kids easier than you can watch a full team of 23 too. So that's been fun.
Awesome stuff. So I'm excited. I think that there's no reason why Hockey IQ can't go further and all these little details. And I think the thing that stuck with me in your conversation so far has been teaching habits over systems. Do you even have systems now, or are you just teaching habits and letting the guys go, or
No,
what's
no,
the systems you're kind of getting at?
No, I think, you look at the, two new systems I see, two big things I see now in the NHL that a lot of teams are doing is the 1-1-3 neutral zone forecheck. I know like I said, my Monday night group, that was our, 2-hour discussion the other night on the 1-1-3, whether it's the F1 angling or is it F1 being patient? What does F2 do? What does F1 do after the first pass? So I think there's a lot of discussions I've been having about that. Barry Trotz did it when he was with Washington and won the Stanley Cup. So everybody's curious. Tampa's doing it. Dallas Stars are doing it a little bit different way with their F3 coming across a little bit to help that, some of us have pointed out. Colorado, MacKinnon was doing the three forwards or the three forwards high, if you want to call it that, with the high F3. So that was really hard to defend. And I think it's been a discussion on how do you defend it? Who do you send up there? Do you just let them be up there, or how far do you go? So there's, the game's changing all the time. And I think as a coach, you have to be, like I said, you have to be willing to learn. You have to be willing to try and break it down. You have to, how would you counter it and how do you think? And, I love talking hockey with different guys, and I think it's interesting to learn. And, you're never not learning in this game. And I think, any good young coach will say that it's, you're beg, borrow, stealing, and you're trying to steal stuff from other guys. And that's what I've tried to do as a coach over my career. And, that's how I learn, and that's how I network, and that's how I try and get myself better.
That's wonderful. Actually, I think where this is going to be going is we're going to end up with 2 forwards, 3 defensemen, and maybe like backs instead, kind of like soccer's changed formations. I've talked a little bit with Jack Hahn about this, and I've experimented it in years past with my college team. Still has a way to go and work it its way out, but I think that's where the game is headed, because it's just so much space up there as everyone wants to grab a puck near the net, but space
Yeah,
isn't
but
there
you
because
need
you see
someone
Gary
with
Trotz.
McKinnon's bomb to be one of those guys.
Yeah, I think
That
everybody.
You
helps.
can activate down the wall.
Yeah. Greg, you and I were at the Blue Jackets Avs game where MacKinnon scored that game winner on the high 3-on-2. Do you remember that? In and
That
out.
was a bomb.
It was a bomb.
Absolute bomb. It was sick.
I can't do that.
No,
Yeah.
not a chance. But thanks, Jim. We really appreciate you coming on here. At the end of every episode, we love to leave the floor open 2 minutes to talk about anything and everything that's going on in your head. So feel free. 2 minutes starts now.
No, it's great. Thanks for having me. And, I like I said, I love talking hockey with guys who are passionate about it like I am. And again, I hope you guys took something out of it, and whoever's listening can take something out of it as well too. So, I've been fortunate enough to be part of this great game, and I hope everybody stays involved and took something from it, like I said.
Awesome. Well, stay safe and best of luck in the upcoming season, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, thanks, guys.
See ya.
See you, boys.
Thank you for tuning into the Hockey IQ podcast. We are Hockey's Arsenal, Greg Revac and Dan Dukart. Together, we've come together to create a platform and a community to expand on hockey intelligence, hockey IQ, whatever you want to call it. We're very passionate about seeing this game played smarter and better, and continue to develop itself to the next level and staying on the cutting edge of things. So you can find us at Hockey's Arsenal on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We're also at hockeysarsenal.com. From there, you can find some resources and some options to work with us. We're excited to continue this. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, follow, and share. You can also join up for our newsletter as well, where we're going to tackle anything Hockey IQ related. So we're excited to have everyone here and continue to build.
That concludes this week's episode. Thanks for joining us here at Hockey IQ. If you haven't already, take a quick moment to hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and drop a review. If you want to be a great teammate, even recommend us to a friend. You can follow us at Hockey's Arsenal on Twitter and Instagram. Check out the website, hockeysarsenal.com, where you can subscribe to the weekly newsletter. You won't regret it. Catch your buttes here next week for a brand new episode.